6 months ago, I started learning game development. I've spent hundreds of hours making my first game, then spent a month on making a video about the creation of that game, and apparently YouTube just decided to kill my video. Look man, this guy made his first game and then he spent a month on making a video for YouTube, but you know what's the best part? But today I'm attempting to learn and make my first 3D game in a month and hopefully don't get by YouTube. So my plan for this game is to make a first-person shooter with some interesting mechanics and hopefully don't get comments from Danny's fans saying that I'm just trying to replicate Carlson. I made a new 3D project in Unity, added a ground object and then did the next thing that any sensible human being would do. Added a bean. Mitvav, 25 years old. Fed up with little views on his last video and the way things are going, he decides to do Danny's bean joke. But on his way in, he has a sudden change of heart, and suddenly his conscience comes into play. Now before you make that joke and provoke Danny's fans, imagine the comments for stealing his own memes. You better think of the consequence.
Who are you?
I'm your conscience. That's nonsense, don't you wanna get the views? Mentions in news? Are you trying to grab attention with intention to lose? Just a little excuse and you'll be fine. Sit back, relax, man, get a bottle of wine. Yeah, but if it all goes wrong, as it probably will, nobody's gonna talk about you as if you're the drill. I made the player. Yeah, I made the player. Then I tried to make my player move and realized I have no clue how to code player movement for a 3D game. Even though I coded player movement for my first game Holy Trap, which by the way you can download by the link below, and if you beat all the levels you unlock a secret ending, it's a 2D game that has only X and Y axis, but here it's kinda different. So I hit up my old friend to teach me how to make a 3D player controller, speedrun an 8-hour video making an FPS game by FreeCodeCamp, and now we have our basic player controller. But if you were watching the video closely, you would notice that we are still missing something in our FPS game, which is the shooting part. And to be able to shoot we need a weapon. So at this stage I knew I'm gonna have to start learning 3D modeling in Blender, but being too scared of learning a new program from scratch and knowing that there is one thing in Unity called ProBuilder, I decided to make the gun model in Unity, which actually turned out to be not so bad. Yeah, and also it's surely not a desert eagle, it's a desert eagle. Yeah, this is what it is. Then I tried to code the actual shooting part, which turned out to be way harder than I expected when you want to shoot actual bullets instead of just ray casting, which is simply shooting with lasers. But after a couple of days I managed to get everything working. And even though it's satisfying to shoot, it's way better when you have something to shoot at, if you know what I mean. So I put all my fear aside, downloaded Blender, tried my best to at least move this cube, gave up after 5 minutes and started my journey of learning Blender with YouTube tutorials. And after a couple of days messing with Blender, I came up with my enemy model, which turned out to be pretty good considering my drawing skills. I also added some bones to the model, cause you know, like, bones are good, and also made something that I later discovered was called inverse kinematics. And apparently I'm so dumb that I don't even know what I'm doing, but who cares until it works, right? So the next step was exporting the enemy model from Blender and importing it to Unity, and that's where the tricky part was. See, I wasn't sure I made everything correct with my enemy model, so I wanted to be able to change my model later, and it would automatically change my model in Unity. So I added the enemy to our scene, which turned out to be a little bigger than I expected. What the fuck? Then wrote couple lines of code that would make him always look at the player direction. Watched couple of tutorials on how to make the enemy chase the player, taking into account different obstacles like walls or high grounds, and now the enemy is chasing us, which is good, but it's looking kinda creepy. So So I went back to Blender and started making run animation for the enemy, and after a week of suffering in Blender, the game is looking more like a shooter and less like a horror, but we still can't actually kill the enemy. And if you are wondering why he is running in such a weird way, know that I'm asking myself the same question. So at first I thought I'm gonna make some dying animation for the enemy model, but after a bit of research I found out one thing that every game developer apparently loves to implement when making a first-person shooter.
Ragdoll.
Trigger the ragdoll.
Ragdoll.
You know I like ragdolls. They just make me go yes.
And now when we shoot the enemy, it turns into a ragdoll. And now when we shoot the enemy, it turns into a ragdoll. And to be honest, I actually love it myself. I also thought it's unfair to be able to shoot the enemy without him having the ability to shoot me back. So I made a new gun model in Blender, which actually turned out to be cooler than mine, spent a couple of hours making simplest shooting animations, cause what the f is this, and now he can shoot me back. I also made him a bit smarter and gave him a field of view, so that he knows when the player is hiding behind the wall, tries to get around it and shoot from a different angle. After that I added some bullet impact visual effects using Unity's visual graph editor, which I didn't know that it existed, but apparently I love it. And now the shooting looks much better. At this point, the game is a casual first-person shooter with nothing special in the gameplay, and if I leave it as it is, I'm gonna get bullied by Danny's fans saying like,
"Oh my god, he has a gun in his game, it's exactly like Carlson. Why can't you make your own game with your own unique idea?"
But at the start of the video I said to make a first-person shooter with some interesting mechanics. So I came up with an idea that might make this game stand out from other first-person shooters. The basic idea of the game is that it will have different levels with enemies, where you have to kill them all to move to the next level. Pretty usual at this point, right? But when you enter the level, you realize three main things. Enemies don't move, there is a timer on the top of the screen, and if you try to shoot an enemy, the bullets will just stay floating in the air. At this point, you might think, what the f is happening? And think that I'm an idiot, which is probably true, but bear with me. So after the timer runs out, the game rewinds time to the point when you entered the level and then replicates all your moves, but this time enemies start behaving normally and your bullets actually shoot. So knowing how the enemies are moving in different levels, the goal is to calculate the right place and the right time to shoot to hit the enemy. The idea seemed fine to me and I started making the game. I started designing the first level with ProBuilder and after that started working on the rewind system.
Yeah, it's rewind time.
And since I knew nothing about how to make a rewind system in the game, I went to a place where all starting game developers lose their virginity. So after a couple of days and hundreds of YouTube searches, I made the rewind system. Then I did some visual effects using my new love visual graph editor, and this is what it looks like. The next thing to do is to add enemies to the scene and give them different states, so that they do nothing while the timer is going and start chasing the player when the timer runs out. And with that done, the prototype of the game is actually ready. Lastly, I made some new levels for the game, added an exploding barrel so that if you shoot it, the barrel explodes and kills all nearby enemies. And finally, I made a simple main menu for the game, and here is the gameplay so far. So after a month of learning 3D game development, the prototype of my first 3D game is ready. Check out the description because I'm gonna upload the game for you to play, and I'm not sure the link is gonna be there by the time I upload this video, but yeah, check it out and let me know what you guys think about it. So could I do that in a shorter period of time and upload more YouTube videos like others do? Yes, I could. So why didn't I do that? Well, mainly because I'm lazy as mainly because I try to create every asset in my game by myself, and I really don't like using ready-to-go assets. Whether it be the gun models, the enemies, the animations, the first-person controller, I feel like if I'm claiming I made a game, I can't just use some assets from Asset Store, put them in my sim and present that as my own game. And all this work actually takes tons of time, but in the end I think it's worth it. I know I'm not the only one who makes his own assets and writes his own code, but I'm pretty new to this stuff and I'm still learning, and I have a huge room for improvement. So everything I've done here in a month will probably take me a week, so I'll be able to upload more videos. So I guess that's all for this video. Join my Reddit if you like memes, join my Discord if you want to be up to date on what I'm working on, because I share all the juicy stuff there, and see you in the next one.